person who commits an unlawful act should never be excused from criminal responsibility. An act to which a person willingly knows the law and chooses to put not only other people at harm, but themselves as well. This is the most careless thing you can do. My stance on this subject is no person, no matter how big or how small the crime is, should ever be excused from punishment. The only way to learn from the act you have committed against the law knowingly is to be punished for it. No other way will you learn from it if you are not taught that it is wrong and not acceptable. Criminals are people who have not lived amongst society and have chosen to rebel against the laws and rules to which makes everyone safe. This is a kind of selfish and inexcusable behavior that will not be tolerated. Justification and excuse, the two most common things criminals do after committing a crime. Justification is where a person commits an act of wrongdoing but tries to justify what they have done, like the Menendez brothers. An excuse is to where people who commit a crime try to find their way out, like James Holmes, and pleading insanity. The Menendez brothers and the killing of their parents. Let's take a look. The Menendez brothers are currently serving a life sentence in San Diego, California, for killing their mother and their father. The reasoning behind killing their parents was physical and mental abuse. No matter how you look at this case, murder is murder. Plain and simple. No matter how bad things get, you should never resort to killing of people. And if you do, well, let's just take a look at the Menendez brothers. No one knows what truly was happening behind closed doors in that family, and no one ever will. The only people allowed inside are the two who murdered their own parents, but all they used was justification for their actions. Eric and Lyle Menendez had no remorse for killing their parents. Instead, they went out after their killing and spent thousands and hundreds of dollars of their parents' money. Eric went and took fancy trips, while Lyle, he spent money on Rolexes, cars, and even on school. They had no remorse for killing their parents, and they wouldn't have had any remorse had they not been snitched on. The killings were so brutal, it was so gruesome, and the police had no idea who would have ever done such a thing. Yet, the Menendez brothers expected to be fully pardoned because of the abuse they suffered from both their parents. However, after many years and much publicity, they were found guilty and sentenced to life. Criminal responsibility is to plead insanity and to determine whether the defendant was in the headspace to determine right from wrong. Excuse is seen in lots of mass shootings where most defendants will plead insanity so they do not have to go to prison, but instead go to a mental hospital, which is much more suitable for their crimes. In the case of 2012, the Aurora shooting in Denver, Colorado, the defendant entered a plea of not guilty by insanity. James Holmes killed 12 people that night and injured 70. No person has the right to plead insanity after the case in which they took innocent lives of people and from their families. The act of killing is the most extreme lengths a person can go to, and you shouldn't be able to plead insanity without the punishment of the crime. Pleading insanity is a luxury out of not accepting the fact and actions to which they were committed. An excuse is what James Holmes used to get out of his sentencing, which has been manipulated by thousands of criminals. Ultimately, a person who commits An unlawful act should never be excused from criminal responsibility. As we have seen in justification and excuse, the two most common types for criminals to make once they have been caught has been used and abused for years, and it's finally been recognized and will no longer be tolerated. Crime is crime, and laws are only put into place for people's safety and security, and when those are broken, there is no telling what people will do to seek to no end.